You're listening to Glove Up or Shut Up on the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
All right, so let's move on to UFC debuting, of course, in Croatia. All right, so with this, you're going to get a bunch of fighters that are local that make it onto the prelims. And, going over this card, obviously the one fight on the UFC Fight Pass card that I recognize is Robert Whiteford against Lucas Martins. Whiteford, that's going to be a good fight. I mean, they're going to give these guys a war. Your thoughts?
Oh, I agree with you. It'll be a war. It'll be all of a fight.
Let's see. Anything on the Fox Sports 1? I think the only thing I can see here is the main event.
Yeah, well, what are your thoughts on that main event?
Nicholas Dalby against Zach Cummings, and I'm going with Cummings on this one, but I think it goes to the judges.
Probably. I think a decision, a unanimous decision makes sense, and I would probably favor Cummings in that.
All right, moving on to the main card. Marina Moroz against Christina Stankui.
Now,
I'm saying that right?
Are we doing the odds for these? Do you have the odds in front of you?
No, I don't know the odds. I'm just going on the fighters that I know here. So.
All right. Well, let me go ahead and pull up the odds. Then it'll take me all of a couple of seconds. So just bear with me here for a moment.
Entertain the people, Peter. Okay. Well, this is a really sad day because this is the first year since 1970 there will be no Canadian teams in the NHL playoffs. The last time this happened, there were only 2 teams that were Canadian. This time there's 7 and no Canadian content in the Stanley Cup playoffs this year.
That sucks.
Yep. But Detroit might make it, so you must be happy.
What year does Detroit not make it? We always make it.
26 years, I think, and they're clinging on to the last spot.
Oh, great. Now I'm getting pre-sales for AT&T Stadium. I don't need this. I only went to one event there. I'm not going to drive all the way back to Dallas just to see Guns N' Roses.
Ooh, that'd be fun.
Maybe. I don't know if these days Axl is the same Axl as he was back in the 80s. That might not be quite such a hot concert anymore.
I'd go 10-hour, 11-hour drive to see Slash perform.
Really? Seriously?
Hey, Slash is pretty good.
Yeah, he is, but I just don't feel like that's something I would drive 10 hours for.
So, I have to ask you this because we are talking about Dallas one day having a UFC show. And WrestleMania, for those people who don't know, drew what some are calling a legit 97,000 fans at Dallas Stadium.
93,000 tickets sold. 97,000 if you count the vendors and security people. 101,000 if you use WWE math.
Anyways, my point is, UFC wants to have a show there. They're probably going to set a bigger number there because they're not going to need the amount of stage space that WWE needs, right?
Yeah, that's fair to say.
Do you think they're going to have the same problems letting people into the stadium?
I would hope
I don't know
not.
about you, but I saw some stuff on Twitter, people chanting, "Let us in, let us in."
I was almost one of those people.
Really?
Well, it took me at least an hour and a half to get into the building, and I was there 2 hours ahead of time.
Whoa.
I mean,
People actually gave up and left.
I literally sat down right as Ryback and Kalisto was starting. That's how long it took me to get in.
Oh. They showed the lineup of, I'm not sure it was people getting in on the broadcast or at the concessions area, but I was like, I almost don't want to picture how much like a bottle of water or a beer would cost at WrestleMania.
I think it was $9 and I didn't have one.
Woo. That's the same price for a tall boy here. It's like $8 or $9 for a tall boy beer at the hockey game. You can buy a 6-pack for what, $11.95, $12.95 at the beer store.
Right, exactly.
All right, you got those odds?
I had to reset my password, so apologies for that. I was not expecting that. Let's see. I think I've got it now.
All right, let's start with the women's strawweight fight: Marina Minoz against Christina Sankui.
All right, pulling up the odds right now. And come on, load. Let's see. Zancu and Miraz. Miraz is minus 185. Stancu is plus 160.
So coin flip fight.
Coin flip fight.
All right. Igor Project against Jan Blachowicz. That could be a great fight.
That one, it's looking pretty heavily in favor of Blachowicz, which makes sense to me. He's the fighter with more upside of late and better track record in recent fights. So Blachowicz is minus 360. Pragaik is plus 300. And yeah, I'd put my money on Blachowicz if I was the man betting.
I don't think he's going to take Project too lightly, though.
No, and he shouldn't, because he's lost 2 fights by decision to Manawa and Anderson, but even so, I still argue that Blachowicz has more upside than Pragaik, because, yeah, okay, it's just, I mean, didn't he get let go of UFC after like 5 straight losses? I mean, I'm looking at his record here. He lost to Vinny Magalhães. He went to a no contest with Joey Beltran because Beltran tested positive for banned substances. So he lost, but then it got overturned. He lost to Jimmo. He lost to Feijão. He lost to Rogerio de Lima. And then he came back and won 3 fights on the independent circuit in like Slovenia, Montenegro, and Croatia. So he wasn't fighting UFC level talent, even though he's got 3 wins in a row, which I'm going to stick with my pick of Blachowicz on that one.
I just look at Project fighting in his home country. Might get a little bit extra boost.
Yeah, but I just don't know if that's enough in this case.
All right, well, let's move on to... Do you want to talk about there's 2 fights on here, Timothy Johnson and Marcin Tybura and Francis Ngannou against Curtis Blades.
That must be like the local equivalent of the Ultimate Fighter for Croatia.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
Heavyweights, both of them. All 4 of them, actually.
Well, these are both coin flip fights. Johnson and Tybura. Johnson's plus 155. Tybura is minus 175. And Blades is plus 115. And Ngannou is minus 135. So, yeah, very much coin flip fights, even more than the previous one we talked about.
Please tell me Blades comes out to the Blades of Steel theme.
I have no idea if he would even know what that was. He probably maybe never even seen hockey or played hockey. We don't know.
Damn. All right, let's move on to the co-main event. Gabriel Gonzaga fights Derek Lewis. Gonzaga's got to be the favorite on this one.
You would be wrong about that.
Really?
Yeah, the Black Beast Derek Lewis is the minus 140 favorite.
What's Gonzaga at?
Plus 120, so...
Okay.
We got a lot of very evenly matched fights on this card.
Do.
And I do actually like Derek Lewis in this one because he's 3 out of his last 4. You know, he beat Juan Potts, Victor Pesta, Damian Grabowski. The only fight he looked really bad in was the loss to Sean Jordan.
Let's move on to the main event, and this is the 4th straight heavyweight fight this is going to be on this card. Junior Dos Santos against Ben Rothwell.
Well, who do you think is the favorite? And then I'll tell you if you're right.
I'm going to go with Rothwell.
You would be wrong again. Junior Dos Santos is minus 130 for JDS, plus 110 for Big Ben.
And these odds might change between now and the weigh-ins or after the weigh-in.
That's true. We got a couple of days to go, so these could flip. But if they're already that close... It's probably only going to go like minus 130 plus 110 opposite direction. It's not going to like a big blowout difference in change.
I'm going to go with Ben Rothwell. I think Dos Santos is starting to show his age. I don't know how much longer he'll be fighting at the top tier UFC. And Rothwell, a victory for Dos Santos here, man, that would just be the exclamation point for his, his consideration for the next title shot.
Honestly, I think those fights with Cain Velasquez and Bigfoot, I think they really took something out of JDS, and I don't think he's the same guy anymore. I think he's getting respect because of his tenure and the fact he's a former champion, but Ben Rothwell has been on a run lately and is looking like the best Ben Rothwell I've ever seen, going all the way back to his International Fight League days. And if this guy's got one run in him, this might be the time, and this might be the man, and this might be the place.
So you're taking Rothwell as well?
I would say, considering how close those odds are, I think it could go either way. But I definitely feel like Rothwell has got some momentum, and I'm not going to go so far as to say JDS is punch drunk, but JDS doesn't seem to be as quick in his reactions as he used to be. And when you're a heavyweight, that can cost you.
Well, that's the show in Croatia, and before we wrap up the show, Stevie, is there any other news items you want to discuss or plugs you want to throw out there?